Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Darrell Brooks saga. On today's episode, we're gonna listen to Susan Opper's final sentencing remarks. So she's gonna give the recommendation to the judge to what the future of Darrell Brooks should be. So that's gonna be fun. But before that, I just want to say thank you guys. Thank you guys for your likes. Thank you guys for your support. You guys really showed up and really helped me with the coffee link, and I appreciate that. I really don't like bringing that up, but I appreciate for you guys to support me. It was awesome, and it does help me. Also, thank you guys for your likes. Someone commented yesterday and say that the video showed up in the recommended feed, so that means that we're coming back into the algorithm. I mean, it's fantastic news to hear. And thank you. I'll never stop thanking you guys. You guys know me, and I'm always grateful for what you guys do. Without further ado, the link to the playlist for this is in the description below. And let's get to it.
He's a lifelong criminal. He is someone who has repeatedly, continuously disobeyed law enforcement based on the resisting, obstructing type charges. There's multiple counts of bail jumping, disregarding court orders, disrespecting court orders. There's multiple acts of violence. There's weapons violations. This man has a history and a pattern of engaging in violent, dangerous behavior in the community. And it was no different on November 21 of 2021.
You notice how he cannot stand still? Like we were watching on stream last Saturday when he was doing the pre-trial hearings, and he was doing this. He was doing this in his chair. He couldn't stand still. Now he's just looking at his arm. He's trying to avoid the situation that's around him because he's not the one in control. That's what I think.
I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the attack. And I choose to call it an attack instead of referring to it as the parade. As somebody mentioned, the parade is good. The parade is the embodiment of a community. That's what you expect to see at a parade, is children at a parade, families, people from all over the area coming together for a joyful, happy event. So I'm not going to refer to this case as the parade. I'm going to refer to it as what it was, an attack. And the facts are very clear, Your Honor.
And you can see him there. Look at those eyes. Look at those rolling eyes. He's like, it wasn't an attack. I didn't plan it. Why you keep saying that? But that's not what she means. She's always gonna say that it wasn't an attack because he didn't plan to do it. But after you didn't stop, it became one. I'm sorry.
Very few of the victims who were struck had any idea this car was barreling down on them. It's an act of a coward, plain and simple. They had no way to know it was coming. And he mowed over them and ran them over without any ability to defend themselves. What is so offensive about this conduct, Your Honor, is obviously the violent nature of it, but even more so, the defendant's conduct and behavior in this court, his complete lack of regard for the decorum of the court, the respect of the court. And I don't mean you personally. Of course, you deserve that as well. But I mean for the sanctity of the courtroom, the process that we as Americans respect and treasure and protect for well over 200 years. And he can't engage in the most civil behavior as being quiet when another person speaks. Many people came into this courtroom over the course of the trial and the proceedings. Every one of them was able to sit and obey the court's order. If you ask them to stand up, they'd stand up. If you asked them to sit down, they'd sit down. If you told them court's in session, be quiet, they all would. Everyone was able to do that except Darrell Brooks. I think he was able to do it. I just don't think he wanted to. I just think this is all part of his...
Again, he's rolling eyes. He's like, ugh. You keep bringing that up. I did it, but I don't want you to bring that up. Hey, I think our officer back here got a haircut. Nice. But also, what I think that also really hurt Darrell Brooks' case, and I'm gonna go into it once we finish the trial. I'm gonna do a whole video about what I think overall. But one of the things that it really irks me about him is the lack of remorse and the lack of empathy to any of the victims, because their families were back there, like back there where he's seated. Those were families. There were people that were affected by him, and he didn't care.
Charade. This referring to himself in the third person, trying to distract him or detract himself, I should say, from the events, taking absolutely no responsibility. It's the act of a narcissistic coward. Those words have been used here today, and nothing could be further from the truth.
I think she meant the opposite of that. I think she meant nothing could be closer to the truth of him being a narcissist. I think that's the way it works.
He is a coward. He ran like a scared little chicken from this parade, trying to slither away in the dark of night, but only to stop long enough and try and take advantage of good citizens that would help him. He calls and lies to his mom, right? Get me an Uber. I can't get into it. He lies to the officers repeatedly. We saw the time of his arrest. We heard the testimony from Daniel Ryder, a good man with good intentions and a good heart, who took this murderer into his home.
I think what he's doing right now is that he's talking in his head. Like he's trying to get out of the situation. He's praying, and probably he is praying, but he's trying to think of something else and distance himself from what Susan is saying, because it's the truth. He cannot handle it. You cannot handle the truth, Mr. Brooks.
And held him there long enough for the police to come and take him away without any knowledge whatsoever of what had gone on. He takes advantage of everyone. He's extremely manipulative. He absolutely thinks he's in control of everything, when in fact, as he sits here in custody, he's in control of nothing except for his own behavior.
Mr. Brooks, be quiet.
Except
I'm
for
not
his...
gonna sit here and be disrespected.
Mr. Brooks, be quiet.
You're not being disrespected. You're just being told your truth. You're being held accountable for what you're doing, which I know that seems odd to you because that never happened to you in your home or in your life. But now it's the real world.
I'm not gonna
You'll
sit
have
here
your
and be
opportunity.
disrespected.
These are sentencing arguments and they can make them.
So I could do the same thing?
Sure.
Mr. Brooks, there's nothing disrespectful. They're doing it in
Yes,
a
it is.
respectful
Okay,
way.
call me out of my name again.
Was that a threat? He's like, call me out of my name again. What are you gonna do about it? You're chained to the table. She can call you whatever she wants and you can do nothing about it.
Go ahead, Attorney Opper.
Judge, these are the facts. You heard from so many of these parents and so many of the people that were there of that fight or flight, right, that kicked in. He ran. He fled. He tried to protect his own self. That's it. That's all he did. Everybody else sprang into action, whether that action was to immediately account for their family and get them out of there to safety. The average citizens that just sprung into action to save somebody else. There's a particular moment where there's a person on the ground fervently performing CPR on a victim in amongst a pool of blood without any regard for themselves whatsoever. I don't know who this person was. I don't think I'll ever know. But it's a prime example of the good that came out. So many people talked this afternoon about good versus evil, and I definitely believe that's what this case was about. Darrell Brooks is the epitome of evil. He is evil in
Another
person.
courtroom, please.
No,
No, you may not. You gotta sit here and listen. This is part of your sentence, basically.
Community is
Now,
good.
in order
The
of course,
people
so
are good.
I think it'd be
The
best for me to
victims
just go
are
into the
good.
other
Mr.
courtroom.
Brooks, I'm talking.
I don't care about you talking.
I don't care what you care about.
I know you don't.
Sit down and be
You-
quiet.
nah.
Everybody has told you that. Stop it.
See, you got it all wrong, Miss Opper.
Judge, the community has spoken. This jury returned a verdict in 2 hours. That's how open and shut this
2
case
hours.
was.
Actually, it was
Everybody saw it.
Actually, it was
Everybody but Darrell Brooks. This jury deserves
you think you know
to be
me.
commended for their conduct, their
God bless you,
patience,
though.
their
God bless you.
service.
Mr. Brooks,
I really don't like how he uses religion and all that stuff to think that he's above her. You're not above anyone.
I asked to go to the other courtroom.
I'm not
so we
sending
wouldn't
you
have-
there.
So we wouldn't have to go.
it's
to
not.
you.
That is not a place you get to request to go to. It's
So
when you disrupt the proceedings. She's
I'm not
almost
trying to disrupt
done.
the proceedings. I'm trying to go to the other courtroom
No.
so she can finish saying the
I wanted-
BS she got to say.
I wanted to share something with you, Judge. This is something that came in on December 5th of 2021. An anonymous letter came. Well, it's not anonymous. It's signed, but it's from a person we don't know. From another state. From the state of Kansas. December 5 of 2021. This person took time out of her day to write a card to... It's addressed to the Waukesha community, and it was sent to our office. And she wrote, "We have been praying for the healing of your community. Please know that there are people who care deeply all over this nation." That's the kind of message Darrell Brooks needs to hear. Because I know during the trial, there was a lot of cards, a lot of messages received in my office and in your office. Good, hardworking, decent people that respect the law, that respect human life, that respect their neighbors, that would take the time to comment and say, "Good job. We support you. We are with you." God is good. There's been a lot of talk about God. There's been a lot of talk about religion. Darrell Brooks brought the Bible into this courtroom.
Every day.
His stolen Bible from the Waukesha County Jail library.
These children are remarkable for their strength, for their healing, their physical healing. We haven't met these kids before. We've never met them. We met them today for the first time. You would never know the serious injuries that they suffered as a result of Darrell Brooks by looking at them. Of course, there's much healing to be done. But isn't it remarkable that in a year's time, look how far we have come as a community. Look how far these families have come. These families, these victims that stood up and pointed to Darrell Brooks and said, "You will not beat me. You will not knock me down." That's what we need to move forward with as a community, Your Honor. His behavior is done. We're done with him. He has forfeited his right to be in this courtroom. He's forfeited his right to be in our community, period. There is not one thing that mitigates.
You see those faces? He's like, who wants to be in your community? Well, you want. You want to be in our society because you're trying to get out of this. Where are you gonna go after you get out? You have to come back to this society. And yeah, you're gonna change states, but it's gonna be the same society.
This sentence, not one. He deserves the absolute maximum sentence on all counts consecutive. You saw the videos. This wasn't him plowing in to one large group of 50 people at one point in time and hitting them. It was linear. He hit one, kept going. Hit two, kept going. Hit three, kept going. All the way down the street. That's consecutive sentences, Your Honor. That's intentional, willful, volitional conduct that warrants consecutive sentences stacked, one on top of the other, just as he stacked victims up as he drove down the road in complete disregard for any other person whatsoever. We kept the kids out of the courtroom in the trial, Judge, but boy, it's impactful to listen to them today. and realize this isn't just, victim GG. This is a child that you willfully ran over with a 3,000-pound vehicle, as so many people so adeptly observed. We're coming up on the anniversary.
Why do you keep talking, Brooks? Shut up. You don't get to know this. You don't get to say anything about this. You're gonna have your chance on the next episode.
Of course, of this attack at the hands of Darrell Brooks. But we're going to have an ability to move on from that. We have the...
He's still trying to rationalize it in his mind. He said accident, not attack. This was not an accident, Brooks. An accident is something that you don't mean to. Something that just happens. This went on for a lot of time, Brooks. You cannot... I'm sorry, but I cannot take that. I cannot accept that take.
Ability. We have the tools as a community, Your Honor, to do that. And that's definitely because of everyone that responded to this incident. No one paused, no one hesitated for a second. They just came and helped. And I think that's something that our families, our community can build on as well, Your Honor, to say evil is easily overcome here. Darrell Brooks deserved to be locked up for the rest of his life. He cannot be trusted ever, ever again. I ask you to consider some of the language in that other act's evidence, the intimidation of the victim. It played out repeatedly in this courtroom. He tried to intimidate you. He tried to intimidate me. He tried to intimidate the witnesses. He tries and tries and tries, but he fails.
Why are you laughing? I mean, I get it. You don't have anything else. Your life is done. But why are you laughing?
He's not the strongest person in the courtroom. He's the weakest person in the courtroom. Morally bankrupt. That's what he is. His character is void. I asked Attorney Basie, what's the word I can use for low character? And then we came up with the fact he really has no character. It's one of the factors the court needs to consider. Protection of the public, the severity of the crime, they all weigh heavily in a stacked sentence, Your Honor, consecutive maximum across the board. Every one of these victims deserves that. I don't know how we look at any of these victims and say, well, he got concurrent time on your case because your pain and suffering wasn't quite as bad as the guy before you or the girl before you. They all deserve that sentence that speaks to their count. The restitution, Your Honor, I filed the paperwork. We are seeking restitution in the dollar amounts that the Department of Corrections shall keep 50% of any wages Mr. Brooks may earn in prison and any monies that may be paid on his books or canteen account, and direct those monies to be paid directly towards restitution. He should not be able to work or receive canteen without paying down that restitution. I also included in my letter the request that should any monies ever be paid by contract to Mr. Brooks, that he should attempt to benefit financially from these crimes, that those monies would be placed into an escrow account maintained by the Department of Justice and paid towards the restitution. The restitution in this case is ridiculously low when you consider it, and that's again because of the generosity of good people all over the world that contributed to a community fund, and other individuals who generously donated to help these families pay for funerals and medical expenses and things like that. Can you imagine when you heard these mothers describing what their children have been through? Can you imagine the medical bills on these? And he's lucky he's getting off with a $200,000 bill for restitution, Your Honor.
I think they're basically just telling him to pay the medical bills. I mean, they're not asking for any restitution for the suffering of the victims because he cannot pay. Let's be honest. He's never gonna be able to pay that down unless someone gets to his price to publish a book or maybe do a series on Netflix or anything of that. That's the only way that I can see him like getting any kind of money. And even though I still think that he should be paying everything, not only the medical bills, she also should be paying for the mental anguish that everyone suffered that day.
I think you should have to pay every last penny of it.
Cares what you think.
He's like, who cares what you think? Well, the judge cares. She's listening to her, and she's gonna take her advice really close.
I also wanted to wrap up again, Your Honor, by saying you didn't hear from all the victims. Certainly, there were some that just cannot bring themselves to this court in any fashion, in any way. And we ask you to keep them in mind as well, especially the Bill Hospital family. Bill was, walking in support of his wife's team and trying to be in a supportive role, as he had done on many other occasions, and lost his life for that simple action, that simple act of good that he participated in. There were some groups that are not represented here today, but I know you heard their story at trial, and you're aware of what some of them went through that maybe wasn't specifically addressed here today, but I just ask you to keep in mind that we certainly presented a wide array of victims to you, but not everyone. And then certainly, as I mentioned at the outset, the community as a whole absolutely demands justice for these victims, these families, and for the community itself. That Darrell Brooks has no redeeming value, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, and those were Susan Opper's final remarks, and I think she was truthful. Like, even though Darrell was complaining about being disrespectful to him, she was just telling truths about him. That's it, and he couldn't help himself but to interrupt and do his thing, because he has to. To join me next time, where we're gonna. I think I'm gonna split the next part in two, because it's like 2 hours. So we're gonna see half of his statements. Well, I'll see how I do it. But join me next time, where we're gonna see his final remarks. Have a good day. Bye bye.